Kick off the weekend, all right? It's the Growler Friday Show. It's Dey Light.
All right. Welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light. Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic here with my guy, Mark Shalafu. What's going on?
We did it. We made it to the end of the preseason. It's time for us to finally play freaking football games. I'm happy about it.
Yeah. I need to have that. I need to have that little explosion from that I had on the show with Mo here as a sounder to just whenever we get a little too deep into the dark places of dumb storylines, we can just use it to pull ourselves out, like, how people will have like you put your motivational thing on the wall or play like a champion today sign that you hit if you play at Notre Dame, whatever your is something that helps remind you of where you need to be focused. And that could be there for us. Just play that whenever you need to be pulled out of a bad place of off-season or weird storylines.
I do feel like that would be a good chance at our live shows to have the Growl Pals down there trying their best to impersonate it. Who can do the best? Can we finally play freaking football games? And just everyone gets a stab at it like karaoke. Growl Pal karaoke.
Yeah,
I'm good though. What are you flying? What flag is going today?
Cincinnati flag. We went Cincinnati flag, and it's Riverfest weekend. I feel like it's a big civic pride weekend for Cincinnati. Labor Day, like it's a big one around here. Everybody coming together to celebrate explosions in the air, something we all can get behind. So I'm feeling the civic pride. The Cincinnati flag is up today.
Back to school comes down, Cincinnati goes up.
Back to school went down pretty quickly. We moved to flip-flop fun last week because it was so hot and we were doing some pool days. So we got that in, and now we're in a civic pride weekend, and then next weekend it'll be back to football. Flag goes up.
I like the flip-flop fun. That's exciting. That's much better than a global warming flag or some sort of drought flag.
Let's celebrate it. Let's not go
fun.
There. Yeah, wait till I have my election platform topics flags start flying.
Don't forget to vote.
Want to make sure everybody remember, if you have questions or things that you just want to let us know, the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. Hit us up. Thank you to everybody that sent questions in for today's show. With the season being upon us, I know everybody has some, and there were a ton. We're going to do our best to kind of get through some of the major topics today, but I understand that we would have loved to get to everybody. I hope we just couldn't. Like, we're going to do our best. There's just so many questions. We appreciate everybody sending them in. Shout out to all of you guys for being engaged. And there's a lot of good stuff and a lot of long-winded questions, which I appreciate. A lot of people who had things to say, had topics they wanted to cover, and that's good.
Yeah, they put a lot of thought into it. The Growl Pals are thoughtful people. They are usually calm and rational people, which is much appreciated during this time of the season. But, there were a few, like we tried to get some broad consensus here over what's important to bring up to you, what's important to bring to the table today for this show. There were a few questions that, got in the weeds a little bit that we might table for a week or two. Who's going to replace the Trey Flowers role on this team? A guy that's only out there 6 plays a game. Like, maybe that is something that we can hold off on a little bit to get to some more pressing matters today.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know how I feel about the Jamar Chase situation. Okay. So we are going to tackle it because you guys had a lot of questions about it. We're going to do our best to tackle some of the stuff that feels specific or new. But the last thing I want to do is fill Dey Light, a joyful show, a show that connects to your inner child of happiness of sports, and drag it down with negotiations gone awry and money. And I'm going to try not to do that too much. We're going to get to it because you guys have demanded it, and we listen to you. We let you drive the show, but we're not right now. I do want to remind everybody, though, don't forget, next Thursday, you can ask however many Jamar Chase questions you want to next Thursday, and maybe it'll be just like last year at our kickoff show when Joe Burrow signed as soon as we went off. Like we got done recording. I predicted the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. And
don't do that.
Then the Burrow deal was announced immediately, and you could come and watch us all scramble. Maybe the Bengals will do that to us again at our live show, but we're doing it. BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks, myself, Mark, Jay, of course, and then just all of our media members, Richard Skinner, Kelsey Conway, Charlie Goldsmith. You know, you've heard them on this show. You've seen them everywhere. We're all going to be down there doing our big predictions for the season, and making hot takes. And then we will do that. It starts at 7:00. And then when the Ravens and the Chiefs kick off around 8:20 or so, we'll be done. You can start watching that game, and we'll hang out and drink and watch the game with you. And we hope to see you all down there. It's a great time. One of my favorite nights of the year, and I'm looking forward to it. And we'll have all our giveaways and deals and all the things that we do at all our live shows will be going on. $3 Cincy Lights, $6 Queen City Nacho trays, amongst other things. Maybe we should get all of our media friends to bring in some obscure Bengals merchandise they have, like when Jay brought in the Tyler's touchdown crunch or the Joe Burrow flip card. Like, right. We've all got weird stuff like that laying around.
Everybody has to contribute something. It doesn't have to be Bengals related, something that's personal to them or they find, whatever. They got to come with something for the gift bag, though, for a grand prize. And these shows have been such a blast. They've been so fun. But what I'm excited about for this one is because when these shows wrap, you know, everyone has a good time. You and Jay have to go do your job, right? Yeah. You guys have to run off. I get to sit there drinking Cincy Lights. I had a show last week, but I still was able to hang with some of the Growl Pals for an hour or so. This time we can all hang out and watch football. No one's got to run anywhere. It's a good time. It's not going to be quite as chaotic as some of the other shows. So come on down. It's going to be a party. It's going to be fun. Come hang out.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you all down there. All right. Let's dive into our favorite stories of the week before we get into the questions. I'll start off, and this is, believe it or not, discussing minority private equity investments is comical. It's going to be a lighthearted portion of this show, only for one reason, and it's my favorite thing, really one of my favorite things about covering the Bengals in general, and that is when this happens. The NFL convened a very special meeting in person in Minnesota this past week, particularly because they wanted to discuss and cast final votes on the idea of there being this minority private equity investments, which is a very controversial topic, and a lot of people think it could be the death of the NFL or the birth of the NFL. It's very greedy. There's a lot of greed involved, and nobody seems to think that it's necessarily great for the game, but whatever. It's just a thing that's happening. It's really not important. What is important is that something happened that happens often, and that is you hear the owners had a vote on a thing. It was 31-1. And I know immediately. All right, let's put the call in. Why did they dissent? It's always the Bengals 31-1. They're always the one. Like, I mean, it's just so delightful. It was always like this anytime we would go and be covering the owners' meetings. What was the vote? 31-1. All right. Requesting Mike. Can we talk to Mike or Katie and Troy or whoever? It's just delightful when you get the 31-1. And they showed back up. And I love people reaching out for a comment from the Bengals. Why did they do it? Because they always do it. Like, that's honestly the answer. Because they oppose, like, all of the things that the NFL is trying to do. And they want that on the record. And so they do, even though they know it won't matter. They love being like, hey, remember when it all goes awry? We didn't agree with. Look who's right now. They love that. And you know what? I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Be like, I don't agree with any of you people.
I mean, you got to assume that the other owners are having a chuckle at that by now, right? Like every time that vote comes across, they probably have that same laugh because they know who that one is too. That's no shock to them.
No.
It is fun because I thought this is one they might even support. Maybe they'll be on the right side of history just on accident on this one. But it seemed like the private equity thing, they would get a little bit of cash. They could throw it at certain receivers or whoever they wanted to. But yeah, so the fact that they were just on principle, just anti whatever everybody else likes.
Sometimes I wonder if they're even like paying. I mean, I know they're paying attention. Sometimes I wonder if they even like really care. They're like, no, we actually agree. Like, we totally agree with what everyone else is saying. We just really like dissenting. And we just want to make sure we just want every vote. Never have a single unanimous vote in the history of the owners, even though they have voted unanimously with everybody on things in the past. But I like the idea that they just do it for fun.
Yeah, and it does protect you because it's like, oh, this is something that's good for us. Well, fine, we could benefit from this one thing or whatever. But then they also get to be like, if it goes bad, they get to be the ones that are like, hey, we knew it the whole time. We were the
Yeah.
only ones standing against the tides, and now look at it.
I feel like everybody has that friend. Like if you're going out as a group, like everybody agrees they want to go to one place, and that person's always just gonna be like, I didn't really want to go there, just so they can say when it goes bad, like I didn't want to go. And if everybody has a great time, nobody cares that you didn't want to go in the first place because you can just go and have a great time anyway. It's a total win-win.
Yeah, and usually that friend who's such a fun hang, it's a good time to have that guy around. He usually doesn't even bring up his dissenting point until it goes sideways. He's
Yeah.
I never wanted to come to Chili's anyway. You know, Chili's the fun neighborhood hang.
Of course, everyone wakes up with a hangover the next day, and he just sends a text to the group chat. Told you.
Yeah, and it's always that guy. He always wants to sit on his dissent too. Like, I knew we should have gone to that other place. Really? Well, you didn't say it at the time. You didn't bring up all these points that you knew back then. Well, I just didn't want to bring everyone else down. Well, maybe you should have then, or you should just shut up about it.
What's your favorite story this week?
Well, I count on you for a lot, right? Because you're my connection to, covering the team, and you got all the inside details. I am a faithful subscriber to The Athletic. That's how I keep up on my sports news, right?
You should.
And I feel a little bit let down again because I saw Trey Wingo this week tweet that the vibes are off in Cincinnati. Once again, the vibes are off, and you've been neglecting this story. You've been hiding it from the fans for so long. The vibes are off, and I don't know how you keep missing this over and over. Apparently, where's the vibe detector?
Yeah, so I was gonna say they redid the locker room, and the vibometer got taken out. So we have to install a new one. They, we had a great one. We loved it. It was very good at being pretty accurate. I mean, it's like the new Dopplers. These things are great. You know exactly when the storm's going to hit. Sure enough, 9:32. There it is. It's raining now. It's like that. It was an unbelievable vibometer. So, but we've got to get a new one. They took it out with all the new stuff. So we're waiting on the new one to be installed. So I don't know the exact vibe number right now.
But they can pick it up in Bristol. They can pick it up in other national media locales, I guess. Apparently,
yeah, I guess
boots on the ground. But
yeah, it's like I can go
sources
on my weather.com app and I know what the temperature is right now in New Delhi.
Yeah, but we need the Athletic cricket writer in New Delhi to tell us what the weather's really like down there.
He can give you the real weather. Yeah, that's right. But
I get it.
I don't know about vibes. Like I know everybody wants to. You know what's good for vibes? Winning.
Playing freaking football games are good for vibes.
And playing freaking football games. Those are the things that are good for vibes. And I think that matters more than anything. And it's just always funny how this happens every year where you'll have these teams that are just inundated with this player who's big mad about this. And the moment they sign or return to the team or they start playing games, people don't even remember that it even happened. And they end up having great seasons. Like, I don't know, like both the teams that were in the Super Bowl last year dealt with this stuff in camp as well.
Yeah, it happens. And you know what? If it's not happening to your team, there's probably a reason because there's nobody good on your team.
Right.
Is Carolina dealing with that this offseason of a star player that wants to sit out? And I guess to me, what really strikes me about the whole vibes situation is it still seems like the vibes are pretty good. Ted Harris said everybody is still behind Chase and thinks it's been handled fantastically. Mike Hilton, like nobody's out there saying bad things because I feel like that sort of thing would have been picked up if there was like negative locker room chatter. That's the type of stuff I think that would have been on your radar.
Yeah. And you know what unites people sometimes? We all hate the boss, right? Like who in their job thinks, you know what? I am properly compensated and respected here. Like what percentage of people in your office, if you're listening right now, if given truth serum, were like, I feel as though I am properly compensated and respected. And no, they feel like they don't appreciate me enough. Like they don't know everything that I do. I should be paid more. I should be paid like everybody kind of feels like that usually in their office for the most part, especially if you're talking about 53 people and there's a pie. I don't know if you knew about that. There's a pie. There's only so much.
There's always a pie.
It's always pie. Well, if there was pie, people would be happier at their job. But unfortunately, now there's just a money pie. But when you have that feeling, like, you know what? I'm so happy that somebody is standing up and trying to stand up for themselves. I appreciate that. I understand that. If I had that power, I'd do the same thing. It's cool. I'm cool with Chase. And then inevitably, like, everybody's on board. These guys are all on board with trying to make their money and use leverage when they have it, because none of these players all never have it. And so when one of them has it, they appreciate it even. And does that mean that they're not? No, they play for each other. They're not out there like, I'm not going to play hard this week because I think my owner's weird. No, these guys play for each other. They play for the guys in the locker room, and these guys don't care if somebody's out there trying to get their money. Now, whatever. If somebody's out there, and we'll debate what this looks like later on in the season. There's levels to this, of course, but like,
we're not there yet.
They're okay with Chase doing what he's doing. I think that's real. I don't think that's them blowing smoke at us. We were, we had to do this stupid thing where we stand outside of the gates to the practice facility or the practice fields because they're, that we have a certain time they will let us in. So until then, we stand out there where everybody needs to get the shot of Chase walking in the street clothes, because that's the shot that everybody wants. All our bosses are mandating that we have those. That's a thing. And so we're all standing there, and all these players have to all walk by us as we're all just standing there watching them walk at us. It's this very long, it's a long walkway. Like, they come from across the street, and everyone is just standing staring at this like 50-yard walkway. And so it kind of built up. And Mike Hilton's like, y'all are crazy. Like, leave the man alone, basically. And then everybody's just kind of like, let him handle his business. That's just kind of the way they all are viewing it. Ted, you heard that from Ted too, who was the one Bengal who, one of the few that was very much on the record about it. Like, I don't know, man. Let him handle his business. We're letting him handle his business. We're good. We're trying to win football games. It'll get itself figured out. That's kind of the vibe that you get. And maybe people construe that differently outside, but I feel like winning and playing for your teammates and being cool with your teammates is like 99.9% of the vibe anyway, and there's a good chance that they should be just fine with it.
I am so refreshed even having this conversation, though, going into a season, that we're not talking about Joe Burrow's latest health scares and how he's looking with the calf or this or that. Like, the fact that we have a healthy Burrow, I'm elated to talk about contract issues that will probably go away at some point anyway. But it is what our Growl Pals want to talk about. And we have a lot of questions that we need to get to. And there is part of me that, listen, I do appreciate the drama-free path that T. Higgins took with the franchise tag. He could have made that worse than he did. Trey Hendrickson's trade request that kind of popped up and went away pretty quick. That could have been a much nastier deal than it was. So I do appreciate where there's not that drama. But right now, the Growl Pals want to talk about Jamar Chase. We do have a few angles here that are a little bit different. So are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try to plow through these.
All right, this first one's from Joe. He says he loves the show. Great start. Anytime
that's a great start. That's a great way to get right to the top.
He said he wants to make it to a live show, but he guess his dreams of having one record at the new 50 West in Mason have been dashed. I don't know why. I mean, there's no rule saying we couldn't do a live show there or something. We love our friends down at BetMGM Nation. We do a lot of live shows there, but we're not ruling out anything for the future in terms of live shows or advertisers or anything.
I love our people at 50 West. Come on now. They got the new spot up there. It's awesome.
Now, to cut to the chase, I appreciate that pun too. Jamar Chase not practicing after Zach said he'd practice on Wednesday. That's a total power move, right? He heard Zach's comments and said to the organization, hey, this is your guy. Nah, it isn't even necessary, not necessarily to undermine Zach Taylor, just to remind everyone above the head coach where he stands, and he will grace the team at practice when he decides until he gets extended. His question here is like, what is the biggest workplace power move that you have ever pulled at your job? Now, Joe comes in with his own here. He said that he got an offer from another company and he told his boss about it so they could counter. Management came back to him and said that they needed to see the physical offer sheet. Joe was furious. So he photoshopped the offer sheet, increased the offer by 10 grand, and his workplace even came in over the top of that for his big raise. So we're talking workplace power moves. Chase wearing a hat a lot. I don't know if that'll pay off. The photoshopped offer letter thing did pay off. What's your biggest workplace power move you pulled?
That's pretty good. So I had one. I don't know if it was a power move, other than just I don't know. I don't know what it probably wouldn't define as power move, but it's not bad. So it came to pass when I was a teenager working at Western Row Golf Course, which is no longer, but once was a great place for bad public golf and jorts. There, I would work on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. I would work out at there's always a little shack between the 9th and 10th holes, and the people go through there and you get burgers and hot dogs and beers and stuff like that for guys to quickly get as they're going on, so they don't have to take a bunch of time going back. Well, it came to pass that day that I think my time was going to be up. I was going back to school in a weekend from then, and they decided that they wanted somebody else to take over that shack because it was her friend and wanted to get her in there. And so they were basically kicking me out after this day. Then they were taking my shift the next day before I went back to school. It was a dispute. It was basically my last day. And I said, you know what today is? Today is Permanent Tea Time Holder Appreciation Day. Everything's free. And so everybody came through, and I said, hey, you guys, all the hot dogs and all the beer, it's all free today because we love you guys with Permanent Tea Times. We've decided to reward you. Thank you so much for your patronage all year. And so I just gave them free food, and they were filling up giant coolers and dropping huge tips into my jar. Be like, oh, thank you so much. I made like 3 times probably what I would have. I don't even remember. It was just like the jar just kept filling. And like, this was really the greatest thing I think I've ever done. And then I walked off, and that was the end of my time at Western Row Golf Course.
That's a great way to go out.
Yeah, why not? Let's just line my pockets and give away your product for free.
That's awesome. I don't, I've never really had like a traditional workplace, so I don't have a lot of power moves. You know, in the comedy world, it's usually like a money thing. Oh, I got this instead of that or whatever. But I did when I was in my early days of sports writing, back when I was still a college student at Ohio University.
Yeah.
I was writing for a website at the time and had a story idea kind of came across my radar about a boxer. He was the only U.S. Olympic medalist to have ever died in war, right? And so it was kind of a cool story. The guy's son had brought it to my attention. And I thought this would be a great story for like a bigger media outlet. And I had a professor who had a connection at the Sporting News. Her good friend worked as an editor there. So I thought, this is perfect. I have an in. I've got this really cool story. And so I sent him this great pitch. And I feel like he just kind of brushed it off, right? He was just kind of, oh, I've never heard of this guy, but maybe look for like a local city magazine from where he's from or something. And I was just so dejected after that. And so I was like, all right, whatever. This is a cool story. So I just made a list of all the places I wanted to pitch it. I was like, I'll start at the top, work my way down. One email to ESPN, and they bought it. And so I ended up writing it for them. It was like a big Memorial Day front page feature and everything.
Wow.
And I just responded to that Sporting News guy. I sent him a 1-line email, and I was like, oh, since you said you don't know much about this guy, here's some info, and just gave him the link just like that. Just a total jerk off, like arrogant college kid move. Just not trying to build any relationships here, just immediately burning whatever bridge and connection I could have had there, just dropping that. And just flaunting that, just spiking that football in the end zone.
I love that. Like, you know, any of us, any young person, whenever we start, they never think about the big picture ever. It's like, no. I really just want to take this one shot. I don't care. I'm sure there'll never be a time that I'll need the Sporting News again for the rest of my life, or anybody associated over there. That
I think that does kind of give away my age too. Back when the Sporting News was like a relevant publication.
A big thing.
Our next question here is, again, we'll stay in Jamar Chase land. This guy says, Jamar Chase putting Zach in the worst position possible. It feels like Zach has been taking bullets for the guy all camp, and this is the thanks he gets. And then this guy basically says that he's team Mike Brown, Zach Taylor on this one. And, you know, he also brings up the time that, you know, Jamar Chase made reporters wait at his locker and then never showed up. And I feel like right now, basically this guy's point is that it just sort of becomes like the fans are starting to turn on him a little bit, and they're getting fed up again because there's no football. There's nothing else to talk about right now. And as soon as the games happen, I feel like you lose a little bit of that steam. But do you feel like that he has put Zach Taylor in an unenviable position right now?
I just think Zach is in an unenviable position. When you're stuck between ownership and the player, I just think people need to not. It is a hard spot, but it's not because I don't think it's like Jamar's fault. Like he's done this to Zach. He is trying to use his leverage. Like he thinks this is the way to do it. Is it the greatest way to go about it? Probably not. I mean, there's no question like that. I'm sure that they weren't too thrilled about what happened. But I don't know. I don't think that there's like any like deep animosity, like, oh, you screwed me over or anything like that. I think this comes back to a basic thing, is that this is why Zach Taylor is almost always vague and like never wants to give us a timeline on anything. And that's why people get so mad. Why won't he just say what it is? Why you got to use several weeks and why can't you just tell us if you know if Amarius Mims is going to play week 1? Why doesn't he just tell us? Or any single thing that happens that has any timeline attached to it, he tries to stay away from. This blew up in his face his first year as a head coach, where AJ Green was supposedly going to come back. And guess what? He didn't want to come back because he wasn't going to chance anything and didn't like his contract situation. Right. So you end up, that's how he wanted to like get an extension. He wasn't getting any money. He didn't like his contract situation. So he wasn't going to come back off the injury that he sustained in the awful Dayton Welcome Stadium practice. Zach had to eat that all year because every week he had to eat the timeline that he said, and it's just it's bad business. It's a bad way to do it, and he learned it again. I think, like, just no matter how sure you are, these things. So it's like people get mad at him for that. People get mad at him because he doesn't use timelines or use vague language or coach speak. He doesn't care. I'm sure he would tell anybody if he didn't think it would come back to bite him later, but it always does. No matter how innocent you think it is, no matter how sure you are, these things almost always come back to bite him. That's why they mostly like to wait till things are totally official until they ever talk about him. And that's why he's in a bad spot. Partially.
Yeah, but this also makes your job more difficult when there is kind of that lack of specificity. It's just a lot of, we have a plan. Well, what is the plan? It doesn't look like there's a plan, and we have to interpret a lot, especially as fans. And so then you've got to go on the record with what you kind of think he means and that sort of thing. And that leads us to this question from Brooks. What happened, Paul, to your earlier proclamations that there is no world where Jamar Chase doesn't play for the Bengals in week 1? You seem to be coming off that previous position, and now you're taking it day to day. Have you reconsidered, or are you still 110% confident he's going to suit up?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody could be 110% confident he's going to suit up when you've seen how this has gone. I still think he is playing. I mean, I still think there was a number of things. I didn't think it would necessarily get all the way to this point. It might. And then I thought that eventually he'd be like, look, I got 2 years left. Burrow would be like, come on, buddy, let's go. And it would just mostly be about sitting out camp, which is what it kind of felt like it was last week. And that's fine. And maybe they get a deal done and maybe they don't. So that has changed because he's changed it by what's kind of happened the last couple of days. It's possible. I think Jamar's a bit of a loose cannon. And so he can choose to sit out a game or two if he wants to. So yeah, I think that what has happened has forced that to change slightly. I still don't think it's going to turn into some massive thing that people like to go down the dark place about. What if he just never plays again? What if he just sits out the entire season? Like I still don't have a thought that it's going to go there. But because it still has been amicable. Like, he still hasn't left. He may be unhappy. He may be walking in street clothes and whatever.
But he's still going to meetings. He's still hanging out with the guys.
He's still doing all that other stuff. He's still working out on the side. So I still feel pretty strongly. My gut on it has been that he doesn't get a deal and still plays. And that's probably still where I land on it. But yeah, I think it's turned into something way more maybe explosive than we thought it was going to be at the very beginning. He still is a guy with 2 years on his contract. He's still in a tough spot, regardless of whatever leverage he's trying to employ right now.
Well, Scott has a question along these lines as well. He loves the growler. Again, great start to his question. But now let's talk about Jamar Chase. If he does decide to start sitting out some games, Scott hates to add to your exhaustion about this topic, but if he sits out at least a significant number of games, if not the whole season, is he subject to fine? Would this count as a year of service if he plays some games? And if he comes back but suffers from a series of mysterious injuries, what recourse do the Bengals have?
So, I mean, they can start doing fines essentially for conduct detrimental to the team. It's basically like a suspension and a 1 week of pay. The bottom line is it ends up being like $1.9 million is about as much as they could do under the conduct detrimental. So it's probably not a huge number when you consider what Chase is doing. There's not a ton of recourse that they can do in that regard. I mean, they can start documenting, and it can get quite ugly quite quick, and there can be coming after bonuses. There's lots of directions they could go but then now you're killing the vibes of the season if you start going after that in that regard. If it starts coming after their money, I mean, you're going into. I don't think that they have expressed any desire to go into that type of a spot here at this point, which is why they haven't raised much of a fuss about his holding to this point. So there's that. Here's the other thing about this. When we talk about him missing games, I want to remind people that he has missed games before, and they've done quite well. So back when he had the hip fracture in 2022, they went 3-1. They got the first game off of it. They kind of learned some lessons that got out of hand in Cleveland, because it always gets out of hand in Cleveland. They got walloped by the Browns. And then they won 3 straight games. They scored 42 points and looked unstoppable against Carolina. They went into Pittsburgh and dropped 37. That was the We the Big Dogs game, if you remember, from Joe Burrow. And they had a really tough fought win where they scored 20 points in Tennessee in the 2016 win. T. Higgins had a sick high point ball for a touchdown there that kind of helped win the game for them. They were pretty good without Jamar Chase. Burrow was pretty good without Jamar Chase. In those games, how people know how I feel about adjusted net yards per attempt is telling stat. His adjusted net yards per attempt was 6.97 without Chase or with Chase that year. So all the other stuff, 6.67 is actually better without Chase in those games. Completion percentage was 67% without and 69% with. His EPA per drop without was 0.08. It was 0.10 with. Minimal difference, right? They won games. They scored points. He was great. Trenton Irwin's star was on the rise. Like, all of these things were happening. And I just feel like it's not like, I think people think without Jamar Chase, they're just up shit's creek. And I just don't think that that's possible. I just don't think that's true. You don't think they can go 3-1 against in their first 4 games the same way they did then without him? I just think they're in trouble if they lose Burrow, not if they lose Chase right now. And I think that's an important thing for people to remember when they start talking about what if he doesn't play? What about fines? Oh my God. Like, they got Joe Burrow and they have a lot of and they're actually better built to win right now if he didn't play than they were then. When you look at the versatility of the weapons, the amount of different weapons they have, the different package they can go in, they've done the entire offseason practicing without him. They're in a way better position than they were then, where Chase was crushing it. He just had his big game in New Orleans. Like,
yep.
They had played the whole season with him, and all of a sudden they were without him and had to adjust everything on the fly. They're in better position certainly now than they were then. And, there's no reason to believe that they couldn't do the same type of thing if that were to happen. Again, I'm not saying it would happen. I'm just saying there's this moment of like, what if they don't have Chase? I don't know, man. Burrow's Burrow's done that before and looked just fine.
Yeah, Burrow's great. And that's for a few games. Like if you, like we're talking, the schedule being kind of easy to start the season, you very realistically could go 3-1. Now, if he's going to sit out the whole year, do something crazy, which is not going to happen, that conversation gets a little bit different. But even then, what I am looking forward to with this too is like once this is resolved, it's resolved. If he gets a new deal or whatever, it's not like some ongoing drama where we have to worry about him tweaking his contract and is he going to be able to play the next week. It's going to surprise you how fast we're going to get to move on from this, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But we're not quite there yet. Yeah. But that does it for our Jamar Chase questions, at least for this week. We're out of it. We're out of the woods.
Much rejoicing.
Let's get into something a little bit more fun. This is from Jacob. With a lot of fantasy football drafts happening this weekend, if they're late, he's curious to get your thoughts on which Bengals have the most fantasy upside this season. Specifically, which running back do you go with, Moss or Brown? He's in a PPR league, so who's the best value there? And I've seen, especially in PPR, I see these guys ranked kind of right next to each other most of the time.
And that's
so
right.
Who do you go?
I sort of was poking around even more about this now as they've kind of gotten closer to constructing what they want the actual roles to look like for these guys. And, you know, the one thing that Zach Taylor said was I kind of just like that I have confidence in both of them to do everything. I don't need one to specifically be third down, goal line, 2-minute, and then the other one does XYZ. He doesn't want there to feel like there's tendencies out there where one guy's out there, they can know that you're probably doing this. He likes them being interchangeable. He's like, there's certain plays on a call sheet that will have Chase Brown on them or Zach Moss on them because they do certain things particularly well. However, almost everything feels pretty confident that both of them can do them well. So you don't have to turn it into something where this and then that and this then that. Goal line, will that be one? That's probably the one that's up in the air where you would think maybe Zach Moss would be that guy, but I've seen plenty of goal line runs with Chase Brown with the first team in camp. So I've seen Chase Brown with the first team a lot, so maybe that's it. But also he pointed this out, Chase Brown's going to be returning kickoffs, I would think. Looks like it. He kind of said that to me yesterday. That's the expectation. And if you have a guy turning kickoffs, then maybe your first play or two of a drive, you don't have him out there because you're letting Zach Moss go while Chase just got done doing a kickoff run. So there's small things like that. The end game of that is go find a coin, flip it.
Yeah.
I just think that they're both going to be used. It feels very 50-50. Over the course of the year, it absolutely could evolve. If you're going in that direction, certainly the arrow is higher up on Chase Brown because there's more unknowns about Chase Brown. It's a bigger risk. I think there's enough out there on Zach Moss. I think we kind of know what he'll be. He'll be super solid. They'll like him. Chase Brown could be really great. He could be Kyron Williams. Okay. And that could be fantastic. So the chance to, as the season evolves, he takes on a bigger role is probably higher with Chase Brown. Probably.
Yeah, but either way, like if you're waiting to draft your second running back, that's a pretty good value because you look at the weapons Joe Burrow has. He's healthy. Teams are going to have to defend a lot on this offense. The Bengals made improvements to the offensive line. All that shapes up. I would be happy with either one of those guys in your fantasy backfield. But now let's move past the running backs. Take Chase and Higgins out of this equation. Are there any other Bengals you think that are poised for a big uptick in fantasy football production?
Yeah, I mean, Andre Yoshivash. I mean, so when you talk about Yoshivash, you're talking about a guy who had 116 yards and 4 touchdowns last year, and 2 of those came in the last game where a lot of the guys weren't playing. I mean, he is going to be like Tyler Boyd this year. I mean, he is going to be taking that. His snap count is going to be right up there. He is wide receiver 3, and I would be stunned if it was less than 70%. And so he's going to play a lot. He's looked great. He's got much more big play ability out of the slot. They can move him around. Yeah, and he's going to get tons of one-on-one looks because of the attention on Higgins and Chase. And Burrow's going to have confidence going to him. We were talking to him yesterday, and he's like, I've been doing a ton of watching of Larry Fitzgerald and Keenan Allen, just watching their film and trying to keep learning more because they were more big body slot receivers, not your tiny little jitterbugs. You see a lot of those in the league. I mean, Andre is 6'3", 205. That's what he's listed. He's put on some strength. He's probably even a little bit bigger than that. And he plays big. He's fast. I mean, a 4.43 at that size is a lot different than what they were doing, where Boyd was a little smaller and a little slower last year, certainly. And so you can just do a lot more, and they can be more explosive plays. They're going to feature him. He's going to be out there. He's going to be in one-on-ones. Like, that is certainly the guy you're looking at if you're talking about breakouts.
And he's not really on a lot of fantasy football radars anyway. So that's a guy that is a good stash because, if T. Higgins does miss a few games to injury or Jamar Chase sits out a few, like all of a sudden that role gets even bigger, and that trust that he's built up with Burrow all camp gets even bigger. And that guy could really blow up. But I do feel like, too, if outside of him, maybe Gesicki, just because of where tight ends go in fantasy football, outside those top 5, you're kind of just throwing darts at the wall. And maybe you get some red zone production from a guy like that kind of swings your team from week to week. But, I think we've kind of hit all the high points with that.
Love that.
This next question is from Alex. And this is one of those long-winded ones we've talked about, but we love it all the same. So he brings up something we debated a lot, especially in the spring, about what the initiation should be for new Bengal bandwagon fans. But he has a similar situation, and he's asking for help from the Growl Pals. So this is one that we're going to need your ideas from, too. Send them to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. We are tagging all of you in on this one, okay? Here's the scenario. Alex says his sister moved back to Cincinnati from out west. She lived and attended college in Idaho and Washington, so she's been out west for the past 12 years. Around the time of freshman year, she inexplicably dropped the Bengals and became a die-hard Patriots fan. Note, Alex's family has zero ties to Boston or the greater New England region. He says, we are a multi-generational Cincinnati family, and my grandfather was an original season ticket holder when the Bengals franchise began in 1968. You could say it's in our blood. Her only reasoning for switching to the Patriots was that Tom Brady was hot, and the Patriots were good, and the Bengals sucked. During this time, the rest of the family remained loyal to the Bengals during everything like the meltdown at Paul Brown, Joe Burrow's knee injury, the Super Bowl loss, while she got to enjoy the Patriots going to 4 Super Bowls and winning 3. Now the tables have turned. The Bengals are now the elite team with the hot quarterback, while the Patriots are lost in the wilderness and in full rebuild mode. Between this and her move back to the Queen City, she has decided to purchase Bengals gear and get back on the bandwagon. His question is, 1, should we even let her in the fan base? 2, if yes, I feel like it needs to be more than an initiation. It should resemble more of a college fraternity pledgeship. What other steps need to be involved in this process? And he also mentions that he is about to become a girl dad in October. Hey. So shout out Alex for joining the Girl Dad Club. And where do you come down on his dilemma here?
Well, congratulations, Alex. Thank you. This is a great question. Very excited about it. I think, yes, let everyone in, okay? You let everyone in. We're much like America, right? Come on, bring everyone, okay? You're huddled masses. You're tired. You're Tom Brady lovers.
Yes, everyone who's physically attracted to our country, you're welcome on board,
You're welcome on board. That said, I do think there needs, I think a recorded apology that can be published on any social platform, apologizing for transgressions, admitting that you merely follow the game of football for the hot quarterbacks and don't really have the same level of fandom. You are far inferior to your family members in fandom, and you should have to cede to them in every prioritization, whether it be an extra ticket, whether it be a shirt, whether it be an event that you have access to. If somebody has to be squeezed out of anything, it's always you. Admit it, sign a piece of paper, and I think you're good. I think you're good there. That should be enough.
Yeah, you get to come back into the fan base. Now, if she comes to the live show and wins our grand prize, that's something she has to give away to a family member. She's got to kick that over to Alex or somebody else in the family. What I was most concerned with is, does she have kids? And I had to reach out to him. I was like, are there kids involved in this situation? Because that's a terrible situation to change who they're going to root for, start buying them little Patriots jerseys, now little Bengals jerseys, just because mom can't decide who's the hottest, right? Fortunately, there are no kids involved in this yet. And if there are, Alex has been advised he's got to jump in and intervene and become, the aggressive sports uncle. But my takeaway from this is I appreciate his dedication to getting this right, and the fact that he's stuck with his team, and the fact that he's a growl pal and he's going to be a new girl dad. So to me, you add up all of that, and you know what that equals? Graders worthy.
Oh, yes. We haven't done a good graders worthy question here in a hot minute. This is perfect.
Alex is graders worthy.
This is definitely graders worthy. I agree. All right, Alex, thank you for the great question. We'll reach out to you and we'll get connected and get that giant, delicious, dry iced gift box of Graders pints sent your way. We're going to have to find out some of your favorite flavors. That is a great idea. That was a graders worthy question.
All we need from you is to take a picture of yourself eating the graders and send it to your sister so she knows that she doesn't get any of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Figure out what her least favorite flavor is and make sure that's in the box so you can specifically say we saved this one for you.
Great question, though. We appreciate all our growl pals sending those questions to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. We did get one ambush question. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's ambush. What do you got?
So you're a big fan of Survivor, this guy notes, and this kind of times up well with having all the other Bengals media people at our live show next Thursday. If you are all on an island, you've got to vote one member of the Bengals media off of it. Who are you kicking out and why?
Oh, boy. Wow.
Create a little drama before the live show.
Jeez. I don't like to kick people out. It has to be strategic, right? If we're talking about Survivor,
sure,
we're talking about what helps me advance further in whatever this fictional game. I assume we're playing some form of Survivor here amongst all of us in the media. You're trying to get rid of the targets. That's what Survivor's about. It's about target management. Do I have a high target or a low target? You want to be in the middle. You want to be unseen. I think you need to target a favorite early. Who you think is going to be trouble down the line in eliminating you, is the most well-liked, is beloved by everybody. There's just when they sit there at the end and it's, do you want to give $1 million to this person who everybody likes or me? You can't have that person be sitting next to you. So I've got to vote Dan Hordoff because he's like as beloved as any human being in our entire media. So I'm saying Dan's got to go. We love Dan. Like, I got nothing but love for Dan. It's not about not wanting him there or anything. This is about Dan being so popular and beloved that he's just got to go.
I feel like this is a disturbing trend that you have established now on the show. This week, you're getting rid of Dan Horde. Last time we did an episode, you were feeding Dave Lapham to the zombies. Like, I feel like this is not a good trend that you're setting up. And if you missed that episode,
it's
go
all
back
in
and
love.
listen to that.
That's how much love I have for the Bengals radio booth.
Well, not for Dave. You were like, I can outrun him, and the zombies will eat this guy first, so put him on my team. That wasn't love. That was feed him straight to the zombies. And yeah, the Dan Horde thing, you've kind of masked in this veneer of love, but I don't know if we're buying it or not. You said you want to kick him out, so not. I don't know what your beef is with the Bengals radio team here.
What is the beef? You know what my question is? What is the beef with everyone asking ambush questions that want me to take on members of Bengals media?
I know, they're all very professional
or kill
related.
them off or create some sort of beef. Like, I don't understand.
The next question is going to be
what like that?
What are your 3 least favorite things about your bosses? And just to get you go on the record with all of that kind of stuff. They are just going to get progressively harder for you to answer. Name 6 things you hate about your wife. That's the next ambush question.
That was basically asked, by the way, like 3 months ago. Someone basically did ask.
We did get something
like about your wife, and I was like, "This is not the platform." Okay, I appreciate the ambush. All right,
this is the platform.
I appreciate it.
We take all ambush questions for you. And you know what? You give us a lot back. You give us all these great podcasts, all the great stories at The Athletic, and you give us some great takes. So what take are you working on? What do you got cooking up? What's your latest take?
Okay. Well, with the latest wide receiver contract coming off the board yesterday, we have Brandon Ayuk is in there now. We've seen all of these receivers now making $30 million plus per year average annual value and all the guarantees and all the money that is going into receivers who have become the new number 2 position behind quarterback, they should be treated the same way quarterbacks are, and that people need to understand that wide receiver rookie contracts are the new quarterback rookie contracts. You should be drafting a receiver in the first 3 rounds because we see tons of receivers from round 2, from round 3 that blow up, become stars. I mean, look at these guys that are getting these contracts. They're not all top 10 guys. Some are, obviously. But, you see second rounders, third rounders that become great. Keep drafting them every year and finding new ones every year because you do not want to have to pay multiple. You're just spending too much money compared to what you can do spreading it across the rest of the roster. And you're going to see more of these teams where you can kind of put quarterback, wide receiver together and view it as, we're going to see a lot of these teams make it to deep playoff runs, make Super Bowls that have rookie contract receivers and quarterbacks, or one of the other being specifically very good. It kind of feels like that's that new advantage that we've seen take over the league over the last 10 years is going to be what's happening with these receivers. Think about it. The Packers have this year $8.6 million total dedicated to their wide receiver room, and they have this crop of incredible young receivers: Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs. Jordan Love is just dicing people up at the end of last year with all these young, talented receivers. That's your advantage. You can spread all of that. Think about the money. The top teams are over 50. That's $40 million that they have to use on the rest of their team that nobody else is. It is the new rookie deal. And there's so many good receivers coming in, draft every year. The Bengals have done it the last 2 years now with Andre Yosibach and Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton, and you just keep swinging. Will they all hit? No, they won't all hit. That's okay. Keep doing it because the value difference is so astronomical. The Bengals just lived the Higgins Chase rookie deal life, and you saw what they were able to do with the rest of their roster. You got to continue to cycle, draft them every year. There's a ton of them. You can't have too many. They're super valuable. Go get that surplus right there and just do it every year. There's no reason to say no.
Yeah, I like this take because I feel like really so many teams are drafting based off need. And if you don't need a quarterback, like you absolutely should be taking either that receiver or somebody on the defensive line, with those top 3 picks just every year, because those guys are so expensive. You're not going to go buy a top end, defensive tackle anymore. It's going to just bankrupt you. You can't go throw like 40 million at Jamar Chase if you're a different team. Like that's not going to go well for you if you have to do that every season. So keep taking those receivers, taking, players on the defensive line, and then you can go pay everybody else that you need to pay. You can go get your linebackers in free agency. That's not going to kill you unless you get the top 1 or 2 guys. You can go get your tight ends elsewhere. You don't need to burn a first or second round pick on a tight end. Seems like lunacy these days, but teams still do it. You got to just keep throwing the money at the players where it makes sense. And those positions are where it makes sense right now. It is funny to me that the receivers are getting so much money, and it feels like the cornerback market is just going the complete opposite way.
It's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if that's the next reaction. Is okay if they're this valuable and everybody knows it, then why are you not putting more money? I think secondaries tend to be more about cohesion than they are about one true shutdown. You can just throw the other way. There's so many good receivers now that you're going to need more than one. Whereas the elite receiver changes the dynamic of everything more than I think the elite cornerback changes the dynamic of everything. But when we talk about all those receivers and where they come from, I mean, if you look at all these guys now that are 28 million and up, or even higher, just say 26. Cooper Kupp, right? He was a later round pick. DJ Moore was a first round pick. Devontae Adams was a second round pick. Jalen Waddle was a first. Tyreek Hill was a fourth. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a third. AJ Brown was a second. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson were both first. Ayuk was a first. Again, you're seeing them rounds 1, 2, and 3 for the most part. Like you're finding guys that are worth that much money there. You can go further down. Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, Debo Samuel, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, all those names. That's the next part of the list. Those are all after round 1. All guys now making 23 million plus. T. Higgins will join that list soon. Keep doing it. Keep firing those shots. It's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, we even talk about like Jamar Chase. Like, there's a guy that you can clearly see the talent and know the value he brings. But there's a lot of guys on this list that you're reading off that I don't know if I want to pay some of these guys $28 million or $30 million because I don't know that they've got that upside that a Jamar Chase has or even a T. Higgins has. And that's the problem some of these teams are going to run into because they didn't spend those draft picks where they could have. Let's do a couple comedy plugs. That's where we are.
Yeah,
now.
Let's go. Where you at?
I added a couple local things. So in September, I'll be at the Columbus Funny Bone with Mike Kaplan on 9/11, 9/12, coming to the Liberty Funny Bone with Mike. And then later in September, Vegas for Skankfest. That's a big one. That'll be fun if you want to come out and party in Vegas for the weekend with some of the top comedians working today at a very funny named festival. We can do that. And then I'll be at Michigan, Atlanta, and Virginia in the fall. And then I do have a couple local dates. I'll be at Deadlow Brewing October 19th. That's out on the east side. And I think I've got something cooking for my Loveland people on October 12th. And I don't know that this is on sale yet, but I did finally firm this up. I'll be at Go Bananas December 5th through 8th.
Nice.
So those are all fun to look forward to. I know that I'll be talking about lately. I've been trying to talk about soccer season on stage because it is youth soccer season for me. I'm coaching all 3 teams, and that has been fun because you really have to go from like I'm coaching a U12 team, and it's like here's how we counterattack, here's how we get the ball to the next level and get shots on, and then you go all the way down to the 4-year-olds, and it's like okay, one of my players has run off the field and is now swinging a stick at spectators. How do you handle that? And the parents are like, "Are you going to do something?" I'm like, "I don't know. I think he's winning. Do I need to interview?" Like, he's doing okay out there. They say that it's like herding cats at that level. And I do feel like that's accurate because cats and my 4-year-olds have about the same amount of soccer knowledge.
Yeah.
My
and also have
it.
probably the same percentage chance of injuring someone who's just a bystander. Right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
The cat scratch, right? Just all of a sudden they'll just attack you. You have no idea why. There's no reason for it. But 1 in every 18 times you're near a cat, maybe it's that you don't know, you're probably going to get scratched or something like that. So you just got to be prepared for that. I think that's all part of it.
Yeah, it very much looks like cats. You think you're going to watch a little soccer game and then a 4-year-old just is like, what is that, a ball? Let me go slap it and then run away sneezing. Like that's the type of soccer you're going to see from these kids. So that's what we're dealing with.
I love it. My kind of dad life in this range is this is very much connected. It's the disorganization this time of year when you're living we're in the K through 2nd area of a number of different extracurriculars and buses and everything that happens at the beginning of a school year. Like the disorganization rate is probably like 23%. Where about 23% like got their stuff together. They've done it before. I'm back for another year. I've got this under control. It's all good. But there's so much turnover because people don't do it once their kids are out of it, or they're just complicated systems anyway. We don't even have everyone's emails. I think that maybe there's a practice today, but I don't know. I'm not totally sure. I don't know who's on a team. Will the bus show up? I don't know. It was supposed to be here 10 minutes ago, and we just got a message saying that it's going to be there in 20 minutes. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And so I just love the total disorganization that happens this time of year where you can count on absolutely nothing. And shout out to our warriors that are out there and like have their stuff together. It's so refreshing when you see some team or somebody who's like, oh, look at this. They have a schedule. We're all on the app. I knew what was going on before it was happening. Thank you. Because this time of year, it is just absolutely brutal. Your kid has a decent chance of being stranded or unaware where they're supposed to be like most days if they're involved at all.
That disorganization runs to the parents too, though. I feel like you're talking about, oh, we're all on the app. There are so many apps that you've got to have these days. There's apps for this class, that school, this school. The bus has an app. This team has an app. This extracurricular has an app. There's 3 different apps you need to log into to see how your kid did on a spelling test. So it's a lot for parents to keep straight too. So I feel like nobody's locked in this early. This is still like preseason for everybody in the K-2 realm.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than an email that starts. So we have a new app that we're utilizing, and then because all the teachers don't even use the same one,
right?
Like different teachers use different apps in the same school.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem right.
There needs to be one app for everything. We are the old guys now that are complaining there's too many apps. However, keep listening to our podcast and supporting us on YouTube and sending in your questions and listening.
You can just go, and if you're watching on YouTube, you just go to the QR code and you can look at all the different apps that you can find us on. You can just go ahead and shoot that, and it'll take you to all of our little links. You can go wherever you want to get us, wherever you want to subscribe.
Schools need a link tree.
Like to have us on. Schools need Linktree. Absolutely.
Yeah, there should be one of those that tells you.
There should be a QR code on the front of every school door that just says, here's a link to all our crap.
Yeah. I like that. We just fixed school just like that. Too late. We did it an hour into the show. We should have done it up top so people could have spread our message wide and far. But now school will remain broken.
Yeah, we'll get it out there for sure. All right. I think that about wraps us up.
It does. Come to the live show.
Yeah. Live show. No Who Dey Light next week because the live show is going to be dominating the space. We're going to make sure the archive that will be archived, that will be up because it really serves as our full season prediction show. The offense preview show is coming Tuesday. Some special guests are going to be joining me on that. I'm excited about the offense preview show. If you are saying, what about the defense preview show, Paul? Where have you been? We did it last week. It's up. Go check it out. It was a fun discussion. We're going to do a similar type thing with the offense early next week. We will have the live show, which is just going to be a fun experience to all of our local media members down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar. Giveaways, cheap drinks, good times, Bengals talk, and then we'll all hang out and we'll be having some drinks and watching Chiefs Ravens.
That's like a second live show just for the people in the
room. Really is. Yeah, the after show. The after show is where the good stuff goes down, honestly. So make sure you come on down to that. We would love to see you down there. Mark will be there.
Yep, I'll be there.
I'll make him hang out with you too. You can work on some of your new material with some people.
Yeah, everyone can give me their best jokes, and I'll take them to the stage. We'll see how it goes.
You love trying out your material when you're trying to have a good time socially at a bar, right?
Yeah, after a few Cincy lights, we'll bust open the notebook and start turning it into an open mic right there.
All right, let's take a look at my political section here.
Are you guys excited about this election? That'll really bring the vibes down at our live show.
Trey Wingo is going to have a problem. I heard the vibes were off at Nation and at MGM. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We will talk to you next time. Have a good one.